Hello viewers and my students, welcome to my channel. In this video, I am going to discuss To Autumn, the famous ode of John Keats, its text and line by line annotations. So let's get started. At first, about the poet. John Keats' lifespan from 31st October 1795 to 23rd February 1821. That is, Keats was alive only for 25 years. Better known as poet of beauty, was the last among the romantic poets to be born and the first among them to die. His contribution in English literature is immense. Keats gave up his medical profession in 1817 and devoted himself to the writing of verses. And after giving up medical profession, he started writing poetry. Keats was greatly supported by his friend poet Leigh Hunt. He was greatly influenced by Edmund Spenser, John Milton, William Hazlitt, and many more. He composed most of his greatest poems in the year 1819. That is, the year 1819 is very important because Keats was able to put down or complete most of his works in this very year. After the tragic death of his brother Tom Keats in 1818, we know that his brother Tom Keats died in December 1818. Keats went to live with his friend Charles Armitage Brown at Hampstead. He met Fanny Brown and fell madly in love with her. Keats is noted for sensuousness. Sensuousness, we know that it's one of the prominent characteristics of his poetry. Sensuousness means while going through his poetry, most of the senses get active. Matthew Arnold says Keats was abundantly and enchantingly sensuous. His works are also noted for escapism. Why escapism? Because unlike Shelley, Keats was not preoccupied with the contemporary issues, but rather he preferred a world of romance, medieval elements, imagery, and Hellenism or Greek elements. And regarding the predominance of Greek aspects, Shelley rightly says he was a Greek. Then, in February 1820, he suffered a serious hemorrhage of lungs. That is, we know that Keats had some problem of consumption or tuberculosis. And his brother Tom Keats also died of tuberculosis or consumption. And his mother also died of the same disease. The doctor warned him that another winter in England would be fatal for him. Hence, he was taken to Italy under the care of his friend Joseph Severn. So Joseph Severn was his faithful friend with whom he went to Italy. In Rome, Keats died of tuberculosis on February 23rd, 1821. So Keats died at an early age of 25 only. On his tomb are carved, according to his own request, "Here lies one whose name was written water." So this is the line which Keats himself decided. Here lies one whose name was written water. This is the epitaph or tombstone of John Keats. And in this tombstone, his name was not carved. Rather, this line was carved. And it was written according to his own wish. Actually, Keats found this line in the play Philoster by Beaumont and Fletcher. Now, about his work. The important works of Keats are: number 1, on first looking into Chapman's Homer, it was a sonnet. Then, Endymion, another poem, an important one. And in this very poem, we find the famous line, "A thing of beauty is a joy forever." Then, Isabella or the Pot of Basil, it's a narrative poem. Then, 6 odes written in 1819, and we know that 1819, the year is very important for Keats because he wrote most of his works in this very year. And 6 odes, that is Ode on a Grecian Urn, Ode on Indolence, Ode on Melancholy, Ode to a Nightingale, Ode to Psyche, and to Autumn or Ode to Autumn. These 6 odes were written in the year 1819. Next, Lamia, it's also a narrative poem. Then the Eve of St. Agnes. Then Hyperion, 1820, it's an incomplete epic poem. And then The Fall of Hyperion, a dream, and it was published in 1856, that is posthumously. Now about the poem. The poem was composed on September 19, 1819. So, To Autumn was composed on 19th September 1819. Next, the poem was published in 1820 in the Lamia volume. Then, the poem was inspired by Keats's enjoyment of the beauty of autumn in course of his Sunday's walk through the stubble fields of Winchester. Ode to Autumn is the last and the most perfect of Keats's odes. So, Ode to Autumn or To Autumn is the last ode, and this is the most perfect of Keats's odes. In a letter to Sir Joshua Reynolds, the celebrated painter, Keats wrote, "How beautiful the season is now." Season means here obviously autumn. How fine the air, a temperate sharpness about it. Next, autumn is generally considered an ugly season. That is, the general consideration is that autumn is an ugly season. But Keats here celebrates autumn in its glory and beauty. He showed that autumn is no less beautiful and charming than the beauties of summer and spring. That is the two most beautiful seasons of England, and Keats shows that autumn has its own beauty and glory, like that of the summer as well as spring. Ode to Autumn consists of 3 stanzas. So there are total 3 stanzas in the poem. The first stanza describes autumn in its aspect of vegetation and fullness and ripeness. In the second stanza, autumn is personified as a winnower, tired reaper or harvester, then gleaner and cider presser. So we find total 4 images, that is, autumn is personified as a winnower, then reaper, then gleaner, then cider presser. The last stanza is about the music or sounds of autumn. Ode to Autumn exhibits Keats's concept of beauty, sensuousness, Hellenism, imagination, verbal magic, etc. Then, the poem is noted for Hellenism. Hellenism, we know, Greek elements. Keats's attitude is essentially Greek. Like the ancient Greek poets, he visualizes natural objects. And we know that regarding the predominance of Greek aspects, Shelley made a remark about Keats, and the remark was, he was a Greek. Again, he personifies autumn as a winnower, reaper, gleaner, and cider presser. The music produced by the animals, birds, and insects is also part of Keats's Hellenism. So these are the characteristics of the poem. Then, the poem is full of sensuousness. We find sensuousness because while going through the poem, most of the senses get active. The description of different ripe and juicy fruits like grapes, apples, pumpkins, nuts, etc. appeal to our senses of sight, smell, and touch. That is, our senses get active. That's why we find sensuousness. The heavily stressed words, few words like load, blaze, bend, swell, plump, and the different images also have strong physical sensation. The music produced by the animals, birds and insects is also part of sensuousness. So we find sensuousness in the poem, because while going through this poem or to autumn, most of the senses get active. Then, Ode to Autumn consists of 3 stanzas. We know that the poem has total 3 stanzas. Each stanza has 11 lines. So total the poem consists of 33 lines. The lines are in iambic pentameter and the lines are written in iambic pentameter. Then the rhyme scheme of the first stanza is ABAB, CDE, DCCE, and the third and fourth stanzas are ABAB, CDE, CDDE. That is, the third and fourth stanzas have the same rhyme scheme, whereas the first stanza has different rhyme scheme. Now the text, stanza 1, season of mists and mellow fruitfulness. That is, Keats considers autumn as the season of mists and fogs, and also mellow fruitfulness. Why mellow fruitfulness? Because various kinds of soft and ripe fruits are to be found in this season. Actually, autumn is the season of various kinds of fruits. That's why it is called season of mellow fruitfulness. And also, this is the season of mists and fogs. Close bosom friend of the maturing sun. And autumn is the close bosom friend or intimate friend of the sun. Autumn is the intimate friend of the sun, because the sunlight helps the fruits to be matured and ripen. Both the sun and autumn work together, and here both the sun and autumn are personified. So in this line we find personification. And again, maturing sun, this is an example of hypallage or transferred epithet, because here the epithet maturing is related to the fruits, not to the sun, because the sun is not maturing, but the rays of the sun help the fruits to get matured or in maturing. So this is an example of hypallage or transferred epithet. And again we find here personification, because both the sun and autumn are personified and they are called intimate friends. Actually, they work in collaboration or work together. Conspiring with him. Here him means the sun. That is, autumn and the sun are acting in cooperation. What do they conspire? How to load and blaze with fruit the vines. That is, autumn and the sun act in cooperation and they load and blaze the vines with fruit. Fruit means here grapes. So in this line again we find fertility image. Why fertility? Because the sun is here compared to a male person and autumn to a female one. So again we find the image of fertility, and both are again personified. So again we find personification. Both the sun and the autumn are personified and they work together or they act in cooperation in order to load and blaze the vines or the creepers with fruits or grapes that round the thatch eaves run. That means here the creepers, that is the vine creepers, and the vine creepers run along the edges or sides of the roofs of thatched cottages. That is, the roofs of the cottages are made of thatch, and the vine creepers run along the edges of the roofs. To bend with apples the most cottage trees, and in autumn the apple branches are often bent or bowed down nearly to the ground with the weight of their fruits that is apples. And these apple trees are covered with moss, and these moss covered apple trees grow around the cottages. So the sun and the autumn work in or act in cooperation or work together in order to bend the apple trees with fruits or apples. And these moss covered apple trees grow around the cottage. That's why they are called mossed cottage trees. Then, and fill all fruit with ripeness to the core. That is, autumn and the sun fill all the fruits with ripeness to the core. Ripeness to the core means they made the fruits ripen thoroughly or completely to swell the gourd and also increase the size of the gourd or pumpkin, and plump the hazel shells with a sweet kernel, and the season also fill the shells of the hazelnut with a sweet kernel. And plump means obviously swell or fatten. To set budding more, and autumn also conspires with the sun to set budding means to cause to blossom, that is to bloom more flowers, and still more and more flowers, later flowers. And the flowers of autumn are called later flowers because they are not the flowers of summer or spring, they are the flowers of autumn. For the bees, until they think, they means here the bees, warm days will never cease. Actually the bees are deceived and think that summer is still continuing. Why do they think so? Because summer is associated with flowers which the bees get in plenty even in autumn. Because the sun and the autumn work in cooperation and they cause to blossom more and more flowers for the bees. As a result, the bees are deceived and they think that summer is still continuing. For summer has overbrimmed their clammy cells. Summer has filled the sticky cells of the honeycomb to overflowing. So this is the first stanza, and the first stanza is full of sensuousness. Here the sun and autumn act in cooperation to adorn nature with fullness and ripeness. Next, second stanza. Who hath not seen thee oft amid thy store? Here the poet makes an interrogation. This is a rhetorical question. The poet means to say that everyone has seen autumn in her occupations, and autumn is here personified. So rhetorically personification. And again this is an example of interrogation. Why interrogation? Because a question is raised here but the answer is implied within the very question, and the answer is that everyone has seen autumn in her occupation. Sometimes whoever seeks abroad may find autumn. And abroad means here not foreign country or alien country, but abroad means open air or the world outside. And may find autumn, thee, that is autumn, sitting carelessly on a granary floor. That is, autumn is found sitting carelessly on the floor of a house where grain is stored. Thy hair soft lifted by the winnowing wind. Autumn, the season of harvest, is here personified as a winnower, sitting amidst the newly reaped corn to store them in the granary. So rhetorically this is an example of personification, because autumn is here personified as a winnower. And winnowing wind means the wind that separates the corn from the chaff. Or on a half-reaped furrow sound asleep, or autumn is found in sound sleep, that is falling asleep on a half-reaped furrow. Half-reaped furrow means a field from which half the copse has already been cut. Furrow actually means plowed land, but here it means only land. Autumn is here again personified as a reaper. So rhetorically personification. Then drowsed with the fume of poppies. Autumn personified as a reaper is found made drowsy, drowsed. Why made drowsy? With the fume of poppies. Fume means sleepy smell or smell of poppies. And this word fume, it comes from the Latin word fums, meaning smoke. And poppies, actually opium is obtained from some varieties of poppies. While thy hook spares the next scythe and its twinned flowers. And while autumn is in slumber, her hook or scythe spares the next swath, that is the row of corn to be cut next, and its twin flower. Twin flowers means the poppy flowers entwined with the stalks of grain. And sometimes like a gleaner, thou dost keep steady thy laden head across a brook. Again, autumn is personified as a gleaner. Like a gleaner, that is one who gathers the stalks after reaping. So rhetorically we find personification and again simile. Why simile? Because autumn is compared to a gleaner and the comparison is explicit and it is made explicit by the word like. So simile. So in this line we find simile as well as personification. So like a gleaner, autumn dost keep steady, that is balances thy laden head. Laden head means head loaded with sheaves of the corn that has gleaned. That is, after reaping, gathers the stalks and then she carries the stalks on her head. Steady thy laden head across a brook. Brook means small river or by a cider press. Cider press is a machine to extract juice from apples. With patient look, thou watch the last oozing hour by hours. And again, autumn is personified as a cider pressure. So in this line we find personification. And the watched, that is autumn watches the last oozing. Oozing means gentle flow of drops, hours by hours. That is with patience or patiently. So in the second stanza we find total 4 images. That is, autumn is personified at first as a winnower, then reaper, then gleaner, and at last cider pressure. Now the third stanza. Where are the songs of spring? Ah, where are they? And in this line the poet seems to be very sorry. And autumn is here contrasted with spring. Apparently the poet seems to be sorry for the lack of the sweet songs of spring in autumn. But in the next line he assures that autumn has its own music. So this line apparently suggests the sorrow and melancholy state of the poet. But the poet is not at all sorrowful or melancholy, because the very next line suggests the poet's assurance, and he assures, think not of them, that is, think not of the music of spring, thou hast thy music too. The poet assures not to think of the music of spring. Why not to think? Because autumn has its own music. Thus the line has a dramatic turn. And we know that the music of autumn is comprised of the various sounds of animals, insects and birds. This music is made by the mournful choir of the small gnats, the bleating of full-grown lambs, the chirping of hedge crickets, the whistling of robin redbreast, and the twittering of the swallows. So the music or song of autumn is made by the sounds of various animals, birds, and insects. While bird clouds bloom the soft dying day. Bird clouds means clouds which often gather at sunset in the western sky, looking like lions or birds. That's why it is called bird clouds. Bloom, bloom means redden. The soft dying day, that is, the day which is slowly passing away or coming to an end. And rhetorically, here we find personification, dying day. So, the day is again personified. So rhetorically personification. And touch the stubble plains, and the color, that is rosy hue, touch the stubble plains. Stubble plains means cornfields which have been reaped and only the stubbles or roots are left. Rosy hue suggests sensuousness or visual imagery. And in a wailful choir, the small notes mourn, that is the small notes hum or seem to mourn. Here we find plaintive sense or melancholy note, and this line is also an example of sensuousness because here we find sound effect, choir, and also mourn. The line echoes Endymion, another work of John Keats, Book 1, line 450, where he says, a wailful note. The notes are compared to chorus. So rhetorically again personification. A wailful choir of small notes. The notes are personified. Among the river shallows, born aloof, and the sound or hum of the notes are to be found along the river shallows. And this line, rhetorically, this is an example of assonance. Why assonance? Because here the vowel sound O, among O, then shallows O, then born O, then aloof O. The sound is repeated. So this is an example of assonance. Vowel sound is repeated. And shallows mean low trees or shrubs of the willow variety. The hum or sound of the notes among the shrubs by the riverside is common autumnal phenomenon. And born aloof means the hum or the sound of the notes are carried high by light wind, or sinking, or the sound or hum of the notes sings as the light wind lives or dies. Lives or dies means blows or ceases to blow. And again rhetorically we find personification. Because lives or dies, the wind is compared to a human being. And full-grown lambs loud bleat from hilly burn. And also the full-grown lamb, they bleat or make sound from hilly burn. Hilly burn means hilly region. But the word burn actually means boundary, but here it means region. Then his crickets sing. Then we find the song of the his crickets or grasshoppers. And now with treble soft. Treble is actually a musical term and it means high pitch, that is high sound, and again soft. So high sound and soft sound, that is two contradictory words are juxtaposed. So rhetorically here we find oxymoron. Treble soft equal to oxymoron, and it means the sound of the robin redbreast which is at once high and soft. The redbreast whistles, that is the sound of the robin redbreast from a garden cropped, that is from an adjoining dwelling place or area of the garden. And gathering swallows twitter in the sky, and also there is the twittering of the swallows. Why they twitter? Because the swallows are ready for their annual migration, and the gathering swallows indicates the end of autumn season and the advent of winter. Winter equal to the season of decay, death and destruction. So the poem ends with a note of despair, death and destruction, because the gathering of the swallows suggests the advent of winter. Winter equal to the season of decay, death and destruction. Now let's explain the rhyme scheme of the poem. At first, stanza 1, and stanza 1 we find the rhyme scheme ABAB, CDE, DCCE. Let's explain. The last syllable ness, it's A. Then the syllable of the second line, last syllable is sun, it's B. Then blaze, ness, blaze, same sound, so A. Then run, sun, run, so B. So we find ABAB. Then trees, new one, so after B it's C. Then core, new one, so D. Then shells, new one, so E. Then mo, mo, so D. Then bees, trees, bees, so C. Then seas, trees, bees, seas, also C. Then cells, shells, cells, E. So we find ABAB, CDE, DCCE. So this is the rhyme scheme of first stanza or stanza 1. Now the second stanza, and we know that the second and the third stanzas have the same rhyme scheme. Let's explain. The last syllable stow, A, then find, B, then flow, stow, flow, same, so A, then wind, find, wind, same, so B, ABAB, then asleep, leap, new one, so C, then hook, new one, D, then flowers, new one, E, then keep, leap, keep, same sound, so it's also C, then brook, hook, brook, D, then look, hook, brook, look, D, then hours, flowers, hours, so E. So the rhyme scheme of the second stanza is ABAB, CDE, CDDE, and the third stanza also has the same rhyme scheme. So the rhyme scheme we find: first stanza ABAB, CDE, DCC, second stanza ABAB, CDE, CDD, and the third stanza same rhyme scheme like that of the second one, that is ABAB, CDE, CDDE. So this is the rhyme scheme of the poem. Now let's explain iambic pentameter. We know that the poem has total 3 stanzas and each stanza has 11 lines and all the lines are written in iambic pentameter. Now let's explain iambic pentameter. So this is the last line of the first stanza. For summer has overbeamed their clammy sails. Let's explain iambic pentameter. At first we have to find out or distinguish the syllables. So let's find out the syllables. For monosyllabic, then some are disyllabic word, then has monosyllabic, then o'er-brimmed disyllabic word, then there monosyllabic, then clammy 2 syllables, that is disyllabic word, then cells monosyllabic. So total we find for, some, are, has, o'er-brimmed, there, clammy, cells. Total we find 10 syllables. Now we have to put accent upon the accented or stressed syllables. So let's put accent upon the accented syllables. For some are, some, this one is accented, then has accented, then o'er-brimmed accented, then there clammy, accented, then cells accented. And we know that accent falls upon the vowels, that is the sound of the vowel which is prominent. And here upon U, upon A, upon I, upon A, upon E. Now we have to distinguish the feet, and this is called vertical line, and within vertical line there are feet. Singular is foot and the plural is feet. So here we find total 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 feet, and 5 feet equal to pentameter. When a line consists of 1 foot, it is called monometer, 2 feet diameter, 3 tri, 4 tetra, 5 penta, 6 hexa, and here we find total 5 feet, so it is pentameter. And again the accent, the first syllable is unaccented and the second one is accented. Unaccent, accent, unaccent, accent, and this is called iambus. The noun form is the iambus and the adjective is the iambic. So we find iambic and pentameter, and together iambic pentameter. So this is iambic pentameter, and all the lines of this poem Ode to Autumn are written in iambic pentameter. So completed.